there's growth in the economy, there's growth in data centers and all kinds of other things that also are creating new jobs. So it's about 30,000. The number is about, I hear 30,000 here in the trades, 300,000 at a national level. So we have a lot of work to do.
Break those numbers down for me. So 30,000.
Yeah, so 30,000 in Colorado in the construction industry. That's the shortage we need to fill, not just in electrical.
Oh, so that's the shortfall.
Yeah, that's 30,000. The shortfall is 30,000 locally, in all aspects of the industry.
What's the current population of it now as far as trades go?
I actually don't know that specific number, but
30,000 is the benchmark.
30,000 would be the benchmark for, making sure in all trades, right? In all areas where we have carpentry and plumbing and HVAC and mechanical and pipe fitters and electricians, sort of everybody contributing is, we've got a shortage. We also have a declining birth rate. So part of the challenge is we aren't going to, we need these people in the short term. Long term, we have this challenge because we have a lower birth rate. So as these people become adults and, come into careers, some of this isn't even going to be solved by a person. It's, in some ways it can't be a one-to-one person because we have currently this shortage, and we can talk about
market demand, you have increase, and then you're going the wrong way.
Yeah, in terms of
occupation.
In terms of building that workforce.
Welcome to the LiveWire podcast, powered by Family. Join us as we explore the untold stories behind America's electrical infrastructure, sparking conversations about life, safety, business, and innovation. Brought to you by OEL.
This is the LiveWire podcast. I'm Asa Dyer, and today we're joined by Marilyn Stansbury.
Stansbury.
Okay, I was close. It's okay. Most people call me Asa, so I have low sympathy for you in this regard. But Marilyn is the CEO of IEC RM, the Independent Electrical Contractors organization. So, Marilyn, thank you so much for being on the LiveWire podcast today.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Something I want people to kind of know a little bit is what is IEC? I think a lot of people know IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, but there's another side of this thing that's the IEC organization. Is that my understanding correctly?
That's correct.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so IEC stands for Independent Electrical Contractors. There are 54 chapters of IEC around the country. We are the Rocky Mountain chapter, covering most of Colorado and all of Wyoming. We are a trade association for the electrical contracting and renewable energy industry. So anything that happens in electrical, from residential, commercial, industrial, solar, EV, if it's electrical, you name it, they are our members here in Colorado and across the country. But they're merit shop. They are independent contractors, essentially meaning non-union. You mentioned IBEW. Those are electrical workers that are part of a union. And really, that's the difference. And I think it's really important. We'll talk about this, I know, throughout our time together today. But a lot of times when people say registered apprenticeship, so we're a trade association, we're also a registered apprenticeship that is training the next generation of electrical licensed professionals. A lot of people automatically think that a registered apprenticeship is a union apprenticeship. And that's a big part of what we do, is educating that no, you can be in an apprenticeship program, whether it's union or non-union, preparing you for a lifelong learning career. But really, the IEC is Independent Electrical Contractors. Again, 54 of us serving members throughout the country. Our local membership has about 300 electrical contractors and what we call industry partners. And currently, we're serving 2,900 apprentices in our program, training them for electrical licensure.
In just Colorado and Wyoming?
In just Colorado and Wyoming.
So you said 54 offices. When did IEC start?
So IEC nationally has been around for about 65 years. And it started as really an opportunity for small businesses to do education and training for apprentices. So rather than this small If you think about the word apprentice, it's people working together and training for that trade. It's been going on, throughout history. But it started about 65 years ago to be that offset from the IBEW structure. IBEW electrical workers built the infrastructure across the country, early in this past century. But our independent contractors wanted a way to also have that opportunity to train collectively rather than it just happening one-on-one. So IEC started, and then it grew in chapters around the country. IEC Rocky Mountain started in 1981. So we were a chapter that got a later start, but have been offering our registered apprenticeship program and growing in size from a couple of contractors that got together to train their employees collectively all the way to the 2,900 apprentices that we're training today.
That's awesome. So the two contractors that got together, you guys saw that as an opportunity to say, like, hey, we can install an IEC organization in the Rocky Mountain region so we can actually start enabling growth in this independent, apart from the union.
Correct. And and just like a lot of our small businesses, it started around somebody's dining table and they trained them in the garage, or in the warehouse of their business. And some of the history, I love the story of when IEC Rocky Mountain was founded back in 1981. They eventually moved into a garage space along I-25. And we still have instructors and individuals that are, business owners now, but they would say, so in class, we would have to decide whether we open the garage door so we can breathe because it was so blasted hot in the garage.
It's a good 80s garage business.
Yeah, exactly. And not hear the instructor, or do we let the garage door stay closed for class and hear the instructor? And so they tell these wonderful stories of what it was like to be cramped in this garage space, learning the trade. And Colorado the state of Colorado did not require education at the time. They required licensure, but they didn't require classroom education. The state of Colorado now does require a minimum of 288 hours of classroom instruction, along with 8,000 hours of on-the-job experience in order to sit for their journey worker license, just to get the beginning license in the industry. But those were contractors that, even though classroom education wasn't required, those were contractors that saw the value in making sure that they understood the National Electrical Code, that they understood safety practice, that they understood, electrical 101, right? Because the theory is the theory is the theory. And then you build on that experience in school and on the job. So these were contractors that really wanted to give that solid foundation.
So if I'm starting let's just say I'm starting a new electrical contractor company, right? I worked for some, big ABC company, and I want to go start my own thing. Like I think you mentioned this earlier off camera, a man in a van, right? And I end up needing to hire 2, 3, 4 people, and I don't have the bandwidth to train them, right? So I'm going to call IEC or IBEW, right? Those are sort of my two pathways to do that.
There are other opportunities. There are other registered apprenticeship programs that offer electrical training. You also can get electrical training through local community colleges. There are a couple of community colleges in the Denver metro area that offer an electrical certificate. So you can get the classroom knowledge that you need, but you don't necessarily get the work experience unless you're working for a contractor. One of the other pieces when I say registered apprenticeship is that so you can do residential, you can do commercial work, and all of that is it's private sector work.
Right.
You're going to get paid by the client, X company, the client that hires you to do an install, a design build, service and maintenance, et cetera. But there's also another aspect of apprenticeship, and this is where I'm making that distinction between union and non-union, really, is if you're doing public sector work. So if you're working on a federal or a state project, they have something called prevailing wage. Davis-Bacon is a federal regulation. So you have to be part of a registered apprenticeship program and follow those compliance standards. So we are that registered apprenticeship IBEW in Colorado and their locals here in the state, they're part of that registered apprenticeship program. So yes, a private sector company can decide, I'm going to be union and I'm going to employ a union. I'm going to employ IBEW electricians, or I'm going to be a merit shop independent contractor, and those people are going to work directly for me. I'm going to, and I'm going to run my company, and they're going to get promoted and paid based on merit, based on, their evolution of experience. And again, they're just different business models that individuals can choose, and then companies, of course, can decide if they want to be union or non-union.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it gives you maybe a little bit more flexibility, possibly, as far as running your company
Well,
goes.
one of the things you said was about becoming, so once you become, you're an apprentice, you get a journey worker license. Once you're a journey worker, then you can oversee, you can lead teams, you can lead other apprentices. In order to be a company owner, you have to be a master. So if you decide you're a journey worker, you've got experience, you want to do something, a specialty niche within the industry, or you want to go out on your own and do whatever type of work you want to do, you're required to get a master's license. And so then
you have to keep up with it
that's
too,
the next
constantly.
Step. That's
as
right.
well,
You have
right?
to keep up with it.
How many hours is it? Is it every 2 years they have to get?
Every 3, yeah. So once you're licensed, either as a journey worker or as a master, once you have that licensure, then you have to renew that license by doing 24 hours of continuing education every 3 years in order to stay current. 4 hours of that is the NEC code. So all of this is aligned with the changes in the NEC code. So once the NEC code changes, you've got to make sure you're keeping up. But then the other 20 hours that you're required to have can be in a whole variety of things. It could be an EV or solar. It could be an additional skill sets in grounding and bonding. There's a whole variety of things that you can learn. And IEC Rocky Mountain has the largest number of approved continuing education courses in Colorado through the Department of Regulatory Agencies. So we get those continuing education hours approved, and then we can offer this variety of courses. And it can either be in our regular schedule of education sessions that we offer, but we also do professional development custom. So if you were an electrical contractor and you had 10 or 20 or 30 people that needed to go through the relicensure, we will offer custom classes for you among those ones that are approved, or we'll get a new one approved. If there's some aspect of the industry that you really need to train for your company, then as long as we can get that approved through DORA, we can make that custom offering to you.
Okay, so let's take EV chargers, for example, right? A new emerging economy market and stuff for installation and for electrical contractors. They're like, I got a golden opportunity here. I want to get into the EV installation world. Tell me, I come to IEC and I say, hey, I don't see anything online for this. What do we do?
Yeah, that's a perfect example because it is a course that we recently developed to address EV charger installation. So you are, one thing about EV charger installation is if you're qualified, you've gone through an apprenticeship program, you're a licensed electrician, there isn't anything so unique about EV charger installation that you can't figure out, right? You're an electrician, you are hands-on. You've got great hand-eye coordination. You understand electrical theory. You understand safety.
Yeah.
It's
plug and play, little different application, but it's similar.
You can problem solve through it, right? That's what I love about being in this field is how smart they all are in problem solving. But that doesn't mean you can't learn the nuances. That doesn't mean you can't learn to be more productive or efficient.
Or if there's new regulation that comes in.
New regulations around it, exactly, new code around it. And the service and maintenance piece has been, pardon the electrical pun, but it's been shocking to me how much service and maintenance is required.
That's super funny.
I'll use grounded somewhere along the way today too, I'm sure. But it has been surprising to me that you do the installation and, somebody pulls away and it's connected, or somebody vandalizes it because they don't believe in EV. There shouldn't be electrical vehicles on the road. It's really been surprising to me how much service and maintenance is required.
Well, every time you go to a Tesla supercharger, if there's 6 of them, 5 of them don't work.
So that's terrible. But
right. Well, I'm just saying though, it's like it does seem like that. I mean, I've driven Teslas and stuff before, and I've had to go charge them, and there's a line for the charger because 60-70% of them aren't working, and. Yeah, I don't know what exactly the reasoning is for that, but
they're they're pieces of technology and they're their own animals. And so, but we have created an EV charger class, a certification that is approved for continuing education credit. And it's been very popular. It has been very popular because, again, even if you're an electrician or you're a business owner and you decide that that's another piece of service and maintenance or install that I want to do, then it just makes you even more qualified in the eyes of the customer if you've gone through that education and training.
Yeah, certainly.
Even if it would be, we have an electrical contractor that just won a big solar project, and he doesn't have a lot of solar experience. And so he is, getting more involved in what we're offering so that he can learn, and not just him, but that his employees can learn. And then we also try to keep up with all of that in our curriculum as well. As technology changes, as these new aspects of the industry evolve, we're also trying to make sure that we're bringing them into the 500. I mentioned that 288 hours is the minimum that the state requires, but our program is 576 hours. It's a 4-year program. So as you get beyond the electrical theory and the safety aspects and the code, then we're able to offer more nuanced instruction and lab experiences in these more specialty niche areas that you might be working on in the job that you're in, or we're at least exposing it to you, so that if you end up changing your company or your company, begins to go off into a new direction, then you've at least had some exposure to it.
Yeah. I mean, I look at the new NEC code that just came out for 2026, and in there is chargers are part of it, new labeling requirements. And it's like, that's got to get adopted now to be able to be running in 2026, which is in 2 months from this filming. So yeah, I mean, it's IEC and IBEW, I feel like play a huge role in just being able to keep people safe as things are changing, or at least out of trouble with OSHA at the very least. How did you get into it though? Because so I can already tell you have so much knowledge. You're going so fast, and I love that. But I'm like, how did you get into this? What's your background?
Yeah.
You just seem so passionate about it.
So, well, and I'll come back to the code piece. We can have a whole conversation about code. Yeah. But in terms of my background, my undergraduate degree is in broadcast and film communication. I thought that I was going to produce television programming. So it's fun to be on a podcast and see how even this aspect of the industry has changed so dramatically from when I thought I was going to be, carrying a camera on one shoulder and a recorder on another sholdder, behind the scenes, telling a story, right? That's what I was going to do. And it was going to appear on the screen, right? But as it has evolved, I've used my communication degree every day of my career and of my life. And I've only produced a few things that have ended up on the television screen. But really what it led me to was opportunities to work in the public, private, and nonprofit sector, moving ideas to implementation. So it's really somebody's got this thing that they want to go have happen and move it to the point of sustainability. And I've had a wonderful opportunity throughout my career to go, okay, here's where you want to be. Here's where we are now. What's it going to take to get us there? And I've done that again in a variety of ways with 3 different states, with the state of Alabama, with the state of Colorado, and the state of Georgia. I've run my own strategy implementation firm a couple of different times, working with public-private partnerships to get
PR?
Big work done.
In some ways?
Well, it's not just about strategic planning, because if you say strategic planning, it's like, okay, we're going to do this work and it's going to go in a binder and it's going to sit on the shelf. My work has really been, I'll help you do the strategic plan, but it's really, let's get that binder off the shelf. Let's open it up. Let's divide the work. Let's figure out how do we organize to get the work done to the point of delivering results and it being sustainable. Like, that's been just a wonderful opportunity for me. And then I worked for the corporate office of the Home Depot for a period of time. But there's been this theme throughout that
is that Atlanta? That's Atlanta.
In
right?
Atlanta,
That's
yes.
Atlanta. Okay.
Yeah. The store support center is what they call the corporate office, but most people would not know
That's
that.
That's a very nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I was in corporate communication. Really, anything that rolled out from the company that directly impacted a store associate. That was the division that that I was responsible for during the time I was there. And then I've also done just a whole bunch of different consulting work in change management, leading people through change, partnership development, a whole variety of
So how did you end up at IEC?
Yeah, so I was in Atlanta. I've been I was in Alabama, moved to Colorado, moved to Atlanta, and came back to Colorado. So that's the geographic story. But I came back to Colorado in 2012 and restarted my communication, my strategy implementation consulting work. And I really wanted to get involved in healthcare because I think healthcare needs to be changed. There's so much transformation that needed to happen then and still needs to happen. So I was picking up healthcare clients in the public and private and nonprofit sector. And someone reached out to connect with me on LinkedIn. I was just telling the story. I was laying on my couch on a Saturday morning. I'm like, oh, yes, I'll connect with this person. And there was a whole job board on LinkedIn back in 2012. And it's like, oh, well, let me just see what's posted. Because even though I have spent so much time in my career as a consultant, and I still, even in my job today, look at things from a consultative approach. Like if I was consulting with you, how would I see this strategically? How would I be helping to help you grow, right? So even though I love that work, you don't really get to own it in the end. You know, when you're the consultant, when the project is,
you're there for a period of time to
teach them to fish.
And air under the wings type of thing.
Exactly. But I really wanted to be a part of leading it and owning it because that's what I enjoy the most. And so this job for the CEO of Independent Electrical Contractors was posted. And I read the description and literally line by line, I'm like, oh, that's me. Oh, that's me. Oh, that's me. And then I was like, I'm just not going to do education and workforce development. I was not going to do this. I got to go transform the healthcare system, right? But I clicked on using my LinkedIn resume.
This was when, 2012?
2012.
Okay.
Yeah. And literally within a week I was hired, and within 2 weeks I was on the job.
So you're not coming from, what's interesting about that is you're not coming from an actual trade background. You're coming from an operations systems approach background and saying, I see what this can be. I see what it needs to be. And that gives you a little bit probably better objective viewpoint at it.
Yeah, I have access to hundreds or probably thousands of electricians that know the trade. It's really about helping to grow that organization to be the best that it can be for them and for the industry and for the people that we're training to be the next generation. So that was really sort of how I approached it. And again, it was another opportunity for me to say, well, here's where you are, here's where you want to be. Let me help you get there. Again, that's been the background. But I love what I do. And while I have not been in the electrical trade, I sort of tell everybody, you know, I'm not an electrician, but I know when to call one. And now that I'm in this organization, I know who to call.
Yeah,
right?
I got a big roster now.
That's right. Depends on what you need. Let me think. Right. I just had someone completely pull out all of my electrical devices and receptacles last year and turned them all into smart switches. And so, do I use them all the time? No, but it is on an app that I can control it if I need to.
Yeah.
So, but my, by way of my other background beyond my career, I have 4 brothers and I come from a family of mechanics.
Okay.
So my dad was a mechanic by, not by vocation, but by avocation. A passion from him. He just naturally, he was always, helping somebody else and bartering. He'd work on somebody's car. He'd overhaul the engine in somebody's car. And that person would, rebuild the cabinets in our kitchen. Like there was all that kind of thing coming up. And when I was 15 years old, I came home from school one day and my dad said, "Did you see that car out in the driveway?" And I said, "No. There's always a different car in the driveway."
You're always tinkering.
Always tinkering, we're always trading, always tinkering. There's always a new car, I've got a deal on this one, right? I said, well, come on. This is going to be yours. This one's going to be yours. So I walk out in the driveway, and my dad worked a midnight shift. So he was always home when I got home from school. Like that was his, so wonderful opportunity to engage with your dad when,
for sure.
I was the first person that, I would see him before I would see my mom.
Where do you fall in the pecking order? Are you?
I'm number 4 of 5.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got 5 siblings. I'm number 4.
Yeah, so 3 older brothers and 1 younger. We'll talk about those folks too. But my dad said, come look at this car, and he said, "This is going to be yours. It has a blown engine. When the engine blew, the guy wrecked it in a ditch, so it had, crashed fender.
And you're looking at it going, this is what I got. This is what I'm going to get. This sucks.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then all of a
it
sudden,
was in better shape than any of my other brothers got,
Okay.
their first cars. Anyway, but he said, you have to help me. This is going to be yours, but you have to help me overhaul the engine in it. So when I was 15 years old, I spent, time with my dad learning about the engine of the car and helping him take it apart and helping him put it back together and wash the parts. And
what kind of car was it?
It was a 1971 Mercury Comet.
Oh, that's an easy engine to work on, though.
So
That's
thank
great.
you.
Yeah. I mean, it's carbureted. That's pretty
Well,
straightforward.
back in the day, right?
Yeah, it's pretty
Exactly. No one can
straightforward.
work on them now, but
Yeah.
they don't, they have to make the special parts for them now. Anyway, so I helped my dad overhaul the engine in the car, and I ended up writing an essay about it that got published because it was such a great experience to, anyway, so I come from this family, not of electricians, but of mechanics who. They've got great hand-eye coordination. They've got problem-solving skills. They've got strategic planning skills. They're not afraid to get in and do what needs to be done and figure it out. And I, having come from that kind of upbringing and around my family, it resonates with me what it's like in the day in the life of an electrician. And then so many of our electrical contractors are family businesses, just like OEL, right? That it's really about it's the family that is your family, and then it's the family that you grow. And many of them remind me so much of my own family, which is another reason that I love being in the industry.
No, that's really cool. And Tim, what I love about the trades too is just there's a wholesomeness to it that is just rooted in just great tradition and family values. And I love, similarly, I'm not an electrician by background, right? I can sit here and I can talk standards to you. I can talk electrical theory. And I observe market trends a lot, but I'm coming out of arguably, I'm coming out of kind of the fashion industry and stuff. So the whole, I never would have expected this is where I would be, but I love it. Like, I'm fully addicted to this industry, the need, protecting people, helping people do their job better, and enabling this workforce for this next generation. I think it's so exciting to be a part of something that you get to really see like the tangible good of it, right? When you even flipping on the switch at home, or I love explaining it to people. You do realize how that works, right?
Yeah.
And they go, I never thought about it. And I'm like, well, this is why we think about this now. Your world revolves around these people over here doing their job. And then behind them, there's a whole nother piece of this that gets the energy to them. And then there's another piece of this behind it that's generating this stuff. It's wonderfully fascinating. And I think it's so, when you just look at the economy in the world today, I'm like, without these guys, nothing happens. And that's just full stop right there. And I think that is just, it makes it such a, I don't know, it just makes it such a field that I don't see how you can leave it once you're in it, because it's so interesting.
Well, it is. And in part of when I'm out doing public presentations, I sometimes start my presentation with, none of us got here today in this room without the use of electricity.
Yeah.
The hot water we had happened because somewhere along the way, electricity helped to generate it. Electricity helped to get it to you. Electricity is making it hot.
Yeah, the maps on your phone. You had to charge your phone last night to make sure that you even had, yes.
Yeah, and if you didn't have it, and the signage in the highway now, it's letting you know on those screens above the highway what's happening ahead. That's electricity. And, oftentimes the first person on the job site is the electrician.
Yep.
The last person on the job site is the electrician. So, and even in disaster response situations, electricians aren't the first responders, but they're not far behind the first responders. Because if the power is out, if the grid is out, that's going to be, the Xcel Energies of the world. That's going to be the local power utility that's going back to restore the line. But if you lost the roof of your building, or you lost power because a tree, took down the limb to the limb of a tree took down the power to your house, that, from that point is going to be the work of an electrician. So many of our contractors, that's kind of their specialty, is, getting in and being part of that disaster response and recovery, beyond the grid, beyond the infrastructure. they're an important part of that whole disaster response.
Sorry for interrupting you, but if you can like, subscribe, and reshare this podcast to someone you know, it'd really mean a lot to us. All right, let's get back to the episode. Let's talk about the grid. Aging infrastructure. This is actually something, I don't know where you're at politically on this. I lean right, I'll be honest. But actually something that I thought was really important was even though I thought it was dubbed stupidly, but that's politics for you, is the Inflation Reduction Act, right? I hate the idea or the name of it on all fronts. However, I did not disagree that there was an enormous level of necessary federal infrastructure investment that needed to happen. Some of the initiatives inside of that, though, were around EV chargers. And when I look at that, I think we were promised, and we're constantly promised these things, that we'll have this massive EV infrastructure. But obviously that fell short. And I know that contract was promised to the IBEW network. So IEC plays a huge part in actually potentially achieving these goals that we want. So you guys will go in and kind of legislate to make sure that these contracts have the opportunity to really flourish potentially, or at least the promises to the public.
Yeah, so IEC, both at the national level and at the local level, as being a trade association, we're sort of like the Chamber of Commerce for the electrical trade, if you will. So we do a lot of member services. We do a lot of things that help our businesses grow, that help connect them to our industry partners, that provide the education and training for their workforce, helping them with workforce development. But a big piece of what we also do is policy and advocacy. How are we representing these individual businesses, some of them small, some of them large, but how are we really making sure that we have a voice before elected officials at the state level, at the federal level, and even sometimes at a local level? And what you're referring to with the EV infrastructure was a piece of state legislation that was passed, I can't remember the year now, but 2019 maybe, that would have taken ratepayer money, so not tax money, but what we pay for electrical bills, would have taken ratepayer money to put into a fund to build out commercial infrastructure in the state of Colorado. And we weren't, for some of the things that you just mentioned, we were like, we don't really think that should be, our members didn't really think that it should be ratepayer money to be used for marketplace infrastructure development.
Right.
We're
So
like,
basically we're taking a little bit off the top here to put it into a fund to say we're going to now fund commercial infrastructure for this particular program.
Correct. We're like, let's let that naturally evolve. It doesn't necessarily have to be a fund that does it.
And that's going into the rebates that these...
the we is, our IEC government team, government relations, our members, we're like, we don't really support the idea. However, the build out of infrastructure in the EV space is good for the industry because it's going to have to be serviced and maintained. It's, somebody's got to install it. It's going to have to be serviced and maintained. So we're like, well, okay, it's going to happen. This just advances it in at the time that the legislation passed. What ended up happening in reality is that the utility, instead of making it like their normal public rebates that you can be an electrical contractor and as long as you're qualified, you can have access to the rebate funds or you can do the work and get the rebate. That's how most of those rebate programs work. In this particular case, they were using something called a line extension agreement that allowed one contractor to do all the install. So it took away the competitiveness of everybody having an opportunity to participate in the commercial installation. And in fact, we started hearing about it from electrical contractor members of ours that had been doing that work previously. And they're like, we no longer can access the work because the local utility is doing all the work. But in fact, whether you're union or non-union or you're a public utility, we've all got the same workforce shortages. We've all got retirements. We've all got people that have moved up into other roles. So we're all trying to recruit and educate and retain and get people licensed. So there is a big enough workforce for
Right.
all of this work that's coming in the grid development and infrastructure that's going to happen. So anyway, so all of this work was getting done by this one contractor through this line extension agreement. The power utilities are regulated by the Public Utilities Commission. So we went to the PUC in Colorado and said, we don't think this is fair. We don't think this is accurate. And aside from that, our contractors not being able to access the work, and there's some of them are losing $150,000 to $200,000 every time they don't get a project that they previously would have gotten.
Yeah, because they had it
independent
in
of the commercial entity saying, "Hey, I want to do some EV infrastructure in my,
put that into my portfolio mix.
Exactly. In my retail environment or my multifamily housing or whatever it was." So, we started hearing about it. So we went to the PUC. We said, this is not fair. And besides that, this one aspect of doing the installation is not going to meet Colorado's energy goals for 2030 and 2040,
right, which are huge,
also legislated.
Enormous, yeah.
Yes, which are, this was legislation, but those goals, those energy sector goals are also regulated, are also legislation that has been passed. So we're out here trying to meet these goals of building it out and meeting them, everybody working together to do it. And then we found this barrier. So we went before the Public Utilities Commission. They agreed with our argument and changed the way that rebate structure is working. And we believed then, and we still believe now, and this is the way it's being implemented, is that you do need to be qualified. You do need to meet certain parameters. You do need to be educating and training and ensuring
we all
that
agree. Everybody agrees.
All those things that we agree
on.
it needs to be safe,
right?
So all of those things, as long as you are capable and qualified and doing the right thing and running your business, it should be access to all. And that's really how we approach everything that we do from a policy and advocacy perspective. Is we're okay with safety requirements. We're okay with with education and training. We're okay with certain parameters around the expectations. But we always believe that it should be accessible to everyone who's qualified and capable.
So is there a loose opinion out there then that the IEC members are kind of just cowboys, doing their thing? That's what I'm kind of driving out of this?
Yeah. I don't know, and I hope not, because we don't want cowboys to be part of our members, right? They can be real cowboys. I'm okay with that part, right? But no, we expect them to educate and train. We expect them to be employers of choice. We expect them to have a culture of safety in the workplace. We want that. And in fact, having them part of our membership helps us to ensure that we know we're giving them the tools they need in order to grow their businesses and prosper. Because if they don't, they're not going to be in business long. We want them getting their continuing education and staying licensed. Like occasionally do I hear a story that makes me go, I wish I didn't know that story, but that just makes me double down on making sure we're educating people on those expectations. So, because that's who we want as our members. And we want those individuals, and they come to us, oftentimes. So you go through the apprenticeship program, you get your license, you get to be a master. Being an electrician is what you're passionate about. Being able to do the work and say, that's my project. Like you can't, you hear all the time from kids and grandkids, they're like, oh, every time we get in the car, that's my project. I built Coors Field. I built that hospital. I built that bridge.
Yes.
Whatever.
Which I actually appreciate that.
I love it.
Yeah, because I'm like, good. A little bit of pride in your work. That's awesome.
100%. I love it. I love that's my project. And in fact, we did a whole series with our apprentices called That's My Project. And we had the apprentices talking about what it is they're working on, because we want other people to want to work on those things and, and build the workforce, right? Build people to want to be in the industry. But they're electricians. They didn't plan necessarily to be a business owner, which is where us as an association comes in, is really helping them with the resources and the connectedness that they need. What kind of legal parameters, what kind of finance and banking. A lot of times our smaller contractors will build to the point that they need to be bonded on a project. And they're like, I don't even know what to do. And if they haven't had their financials in a certain structure, in a certain place, by the time they grow to the point that they can be bonded, they're not going to get that project because they didn't have
They don't even know how to put the framework together to do it.
Exactly. They didn't have the process in the background. And so we do a lot of education and training around that aspect of it. How do you have these...
So leadership for those organizations as well.
Exactly. So the leadership, the governance, all of that, in helping them just with... whether you have a board of directors or it's just your key advisors, who are your strategic advisors that are going to help you grow, but also when you're a company that meets a challenge, and that happens too. As small businesses grow,
it sucks.
There's challenges, right?
It sucks, yeah.
And so, and how do you overcome those? And that's why those relationships are so important, that you've got, you're insured the right way, that you're bonded the right way, that you've got the right financial, or lines of credit in place if that's what it needs. Even AR, I ran into a small contractor years ago that was complaining about their cash flow. And we started having a conversation about cash flow, and they were doing residential service work. And if anybody's still doing that that's listening, sorry to point this out, but they were doing residential service work and then small work at in a home, and the employee doing the work, so the electrician doing the work, was saying, well, the bookkeeper will bill you later.
And it wasn't happening.
And well, yes, but it's going to, they're going to get around to doing their weekly or their monthly or whatever billing. And like, you've long forgotten that, oh yeah, that person was in there to install my ceiling fan or to fix the light switch that wasn't working, in the laundry room or whatever the small project might have been. And so even that, for a small business, even that cash flow, there should be a way that I'll take your credit card right now through this software system on my phone, But we have, and we can talk about the evolution of technology and how that has changed. But even that is that no wonder you have these cash flow issues, because you've got 3 people touching it that you're paying before you get the $100 that you charged, or the $200 that you charged, So just even those kinds of things is where we can help be a resource and in problem solving and in business planning, or even like with like OEL, one of our industry partners. The more I know about what your company does and brings to the table in the industry, the more I can help our contractors solve for a problem. And in fact, there's a real example of that, that one of our contractors was working on a project in New Mexico. He was driving down to New Mexico for a shutdown.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
Yeah. And he was supposed to have access to his arc flash suit that wasn't going to be accessible to him when he needed to do the shutdown. And so OEL to the rescue, and he's in all the gear that he needs in order to get down there immediately to take care of the situation. And so that's where, because we know who to help him call, he was able to make that call. And that's just one example. But our suppliers, our distributors, our manufacturers, they're the ones that are cutting edge with knowing what's changing in the industry. They're the ones that, they got new product lines coming out. And all of a sudden you have this opportunity that you're going to work on a gas station. So you need insulated tools that maybe you didn't need those before, but now you do. Well, who in our industry partner realm does insulated tools, for example? We can make those connections. And so, and they build their own relationships and grow over time. But anywhere that we can help understand what the business pain point or challenge is an opportunity for us to do an education session on something, bonding as an example, or helps us just make a direct connection. So.
No, yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it's obviously been beneficial, and we love networking in general, right? We want to be as close to the contractors and as many as the contractors that we can possibly, not just from the business standpoint of it, but just the knowledge base of it, right? We understand more about what the challenges are, what the evolving challenges are, how things are changing, moving. It helps us as a collective be able to bring products and think about the innovations correctly. Right? So,
well, you were talking about the code changes. We have a set of code books that years ago, residential was this. The code book was this thick. Residential was maybe this. Now the code book is this. And residential is a big part of the overall code book. So, there hasn't been a lot of change in some areas, but there have been in others. And, we're watching those sections of the code book grow over time that everybody has to be up on. And then you mentioned in this next code cycle, when the codes change, they're recalibrating, recataloging, if you will, where things are in the code book. So that's going to be a dramatic change all electrical, for all licensed electricians. Your tabs are all going to be different now. It's not necessarily going to be Section 12. It's going to be some other section, and you're going to have to. The content is there.
Section 3, is my understanding, is going to be the big one. And Heath Garrison, who we were talking to, he's one of the committee guys for that. So he was leaning into that a lot. This is going to be this is probably going to be one of the bigger parts of it. And he was on that committee directly, and he's like, this will start addressing a lot of the stuff that would have been over in R&D is now in essentially mainstream now.
Right.
So,
well, and apparently it's needed to happen for a long time. It's going to look even more profoundly different now because no one wanted to make the change, but it's come to the point that it needed to be. And then the other piece of it, for our manufacturers, code changes, and manufacturers have to keep up with what those code changes are. So, in Colorado, 6 or 8 years ago, when GFCIs were tripping everywhere in the mountains and your refrigerator was off when you got home for the day, it's the code changes happening. The manufacturers staying on top of what they need to do in order to produce for that code. And I'm sure the same is true for, safety and apparel and other things, making sure those standards are in place. And that, that cycle takes time as well. So we just, again, the importance of why, when you look at 24 hours of continuing education, why some part of the required content is in what's changed within the codes, because it does change.
How do you guys go about recruiting new people? Because I got to think that and I've heard this now from a couple of people, which is the workforce is changing. For this, I can't qualify this stat, but I'm sure it's true, is for every 3 electricians that are being retired, only 1 is being replaced. How does a group like IEC help enable the next generation of workforce to say, I would like to go into the trades?
Yeah. So we've made a lot of investments, and I don't mean financial, I just mean in resource and thinking and around workforce development. To look at our own program in Colorado, when I started 10 years ago, we had just shy of 1,000 apprentices in our program. We're now at 2,900. So we've grown significantly in trying to meet that need. And yes, I could double the size of our current enrollment and keep them engaged to the point of them getting licensure, because it's one thing for them to be enrolled in the program. The end goal is we really want you to graduate and get your license, because we need to fill all those retirements. And again, it's even people that have left the field to be project managers or estimators or business owners that aren't necessarily doing the hands-on, right?
But they still need the workforce.
But we still need the workforce, right? And there's growth in the economy. There's growth in data centers and all kinds of other things that also are creating new jobs. So it's about 30,000. The number is I hear 30,000 here in the trades, 300,000 at a national level. So we have a lot of work to do.
Break those numbers down for me. So 30,000.
Yeah, so 30,000 in Colorado in the construction industry. That's the shortage we need to fill, not just in electrical.
Oh, so that's the shortfall.
Yeah, that's the shortfall is 30,000 locally. In all aspects of the industry.
What's the current population of it now as far as trades go?
I actually don't know that specific number, but I
but 30,000 is the benchmark.
30,000 would be the benchmark for, making sure in all trades, right? In all areas where we have carpentry and plumbing and HVAC and mechanical and pipe fitters and electricians, sort of everybody contributing is, we've got a shortage. We also have a declining birth rate. So part of the challenge is we aren't going to, we need these people in the short term. Long term, we have this challenge because we have a lower birth rate. So as these people become adults and, come into careers, some of this isn't even going to be solved by a person. It's, in some ways it can't be a one-to-one person because we have currently this shortage, and we can talk about
market demand, you have increase, and then you're going the wrong way.
Yeah, in terms of
occupation.
In terms of building that workforce. But back to what we're doing right now, like what can we control? What are the things that we're doing?
Have babies.
So
that want to be plumbers and electricians.
That want to be, and that's the other thing is even if we had the numbers, we're competing with a whole variety of other industries and other skill sets. So that's always been the case. But what we've done is work really hard in a couple of ways. One is we've gotten more involved in middle and high school education. There was a period of time where, vocational instruction came out of schools. There was the pendulum of everybody's got to go to college. That was the mantra. Everybody's got to go to college. You got to have a 4-year degree. We're seeing that pendulum come back to the middle, and I love this place where yes, we want some people to go to college, and yes, we want people to enter trades. What we want everyone to do is find what they're passionate about. Find a pathway to a career, and that can mean technical college, it can mean an apprenticeship, it can mean college, it can mean on-the-job training. There's a whole variety of ways in which finding that career pathway. So we're in a good place right now with having people understand that being in the trades, being an electrician is a professional occupation. It does require education and training. It does require, it allows for a good paying job. It allows for lifelong family sustaining wages that are meaningful. And you can be a business owner if you so choose in the end of your as your experience develops and grows. So we're getting much more acceptance in that way. The president of our board of directors, because we're a nonprofit, we're governed by a board of directors. The president of our nonprofit, of our association says it's choose your own adventure. And I'm not of the generation of the choose your own adventure books, but the choose your own adventure books is you can skip to the end and there's all these different ways the story ends.
I'm not even familiar with this. What is he talking about?
Yeah, the books are called Choose Your Own Adventure.
I've never even heard of them.
So he must be in the same generation as me because I missed them somewhere along the way. But anyway, it's called Choose Your Own Adventure. So you start to read.
I say look at your bank account.
Yeah, well, that's true too. But so it's Choose Your Own Adventure, and that's what we want people to do. And you can choose your own adventure by entering this trade, by choosing what you do for your career. But even when you're in this industry, it's still a choose your own adventure for all the different opportunities that you can have once you're a licensed electrician, or even if you're not a licensed electrician, you can be in manufacturing or in distribution or a project manager or an estimator, or there's all kinds of opportunities that exist beyond just the main point of becoming an apprentice into, a licensed electrician. So we're seeing this pendulum change, which is great. Working with middle and high school students, we've also worked on both sides of our apprenticeship program. So if you're coming out of high school and you have dual enrollment credit, so community college credit that you get for math and science and English and other things that you might be getting in high school, you can come into the apprenticeship program, and when you're done, you can finish your 4 years not only with your graduating from your apprenticeship program and the opportunity to pass the test to be licensed, but you're going to have the opportunity to have an associate's degree. Then if you want to build on it, you can. We also have relationships with CSU.
But if I'm a contractor and I'm hiring and I see that, I'm going to go, awesome. This is a killer candidate. We need to get this guy
exactly.
or girl.
Someone that has this background that also, wants to be in the industry. But even if you don't, honestly, to get a journey worker license, that's a ticket to a career in and of itself, even if you don't have any college credit prior to or later. Like that is an adventure. That is an opportunity. However, if you decide, I do want to go into construction management. I do want to go get some business classes because I think I'm going to own my own business. We've now set this up so you have this stackable, seamless credential that is an associate's degree, either because you already have some community college credit or you take 15 to 18 more hours and you get it on the other end. We also have a relationship with CSU Global and Metro State so that when you graduate, you can get up to 54 credits towards a bachelor's degree. And then that's almost half of a 120-hour bachelor's degree. So, then if you decide later on, then you can go back to school. And guess what? You're now making a wage that you can pay for college on your own that you might not have been able to do because your parents couldn't afford it. They don't have to mortgage their home in order to send you to college, but you can do it on your own. So, and those are all things that we've done in the last 10 years to really make it I mean, I put being an electrician as a professional occupation on par with being in the medical field, with being in finance, with being in legal, because of the amount of time that you have to train to be educated, because of the hands-on work you have to do, and the continuous lifelong learning that you're going to do in order to maintain licensure.
Oh yeah, just the market observation of, I mean, let's be real. AI is going to displace
A lot.
2 out of the 3 that you just mentioned.
A lot,
The third
yes.
one, I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, that's probably
yeah.
your most
but
insulated one.
AI is not going to change the wiring in your house.
No,
a human is going to do that.
I did ask that question, and I've asked it a lot recently because I've gone down the wormhole of AI, and I've let these nerds from Silicon Valley convince me at some level, very marginally, that, okay, robots will eventually be able to do this. And then I talk to anyone that's in the trades and like, not a chance. And I'm like, let's see how, I want to see how this plays out. But, and I do want to believe that, but nonetheless, I still think there's at least a 10 to 20 year really great run cycle here before we really start seeing a potential for a robotic introduction into this space. But I don't know if I could, because you can't make the human reason.
So all those
choices, it won't be able to do that.
Yeah. So AI is definitely going to enhance efficiency and productivity in the industry. There's no doubt. It's going to enhance productivity and efficiency in a lot of industries. But all of that AI takes a lot of power generation in order to brain process all the things that it processes in a data center environment. And guess who's doing that work?
Yeah, exactly.
The electrical trade.
Right.
So do I think it enhances the industry? Absolutely. Do I think it's going to fully replace the brain power and the hand power? Completely no. I don't think that it will, at least not in any of our generations. Maybe when we're back to the Jetsons, but there were humans in the Jetsons too.
That's true. That's true. What was so when you guys set up middle school, high school stuff, is this like a pop-up table type of a thing with an IEC banner that says, hey, get some information?
Yeah, it's a lot of things. So if we're in a middle and a high school, we are, maybe at a 6-foot table, yes, with a pop-up banner. But we have lab boards that we take and give them opportunity to do single phase and 3-way wiring so they can see how a switch works. They can see it on and off. And in some cases, we're working so that they can even transform power because electricity does 2 things. It's a switch that goes on and off, or it transforms something, right, in a system. So we're giving students hands-on activities. And I have even seen elementary kids, girls and boys, make circles around our table because they want to go do the hands-on activities that we provide to give them, to demonstrate what it is we do in the industry. So that's what happens in middle and high school. But there are also a lot of career and technology education centers where we're coming in to talk. We're coming in, we have a lot of our contractors that are willing to volunteer, or even our apprentices that are willing to volunteer and be the person that talks about the trade. And then in career fairs, bringing them through. But we try as much as we can to give hands-on demonstrations and hands-on examples so that they get a feel for.
Well, you're going to find out real quick if there's passion there, if you like working with your hands.
Totally. And in fact, if I just got to sit around and imagine who I want in the workplace, who our next generation apprentice needs to be, it's that individual that is playing a video game that is used because they know how to use technology. Just because AI is not going to completely replace doesn't mean technology hasn't grown and doesn't continue to grow in the workplace. So that person knows technology. They know problem solving because if they're working on a video game, they are constantly trying to get through the next challenge. They want to go earn the points or earn the money or earn the whatever is happening to get beyond this barrier to meet something else. So they're problem solving, they're strategically thinking, this great hand-eye coordination for the controller they're using. Every bit of that skill set is what an electrician does. And so anybody that they're like, oh, I want to develop a video game. Oh no, we want you over here running the video game. So, and with BIM modeling and other things, it's, there's so much technology now being used in the workplace. And that's
how you hook them. You go, do you like video games?
Yeah.
Become an electrical contractor.
Yeah. Well, in fact, so we talked about professional development, growing things through apprenticeship, but we also run an emerging leaders program. Yeah. So apprentices people that are earlier in their career, or maybe people that are more advanced in their career. They're coming out of the field. They're getting into an office environment for the first time, helping them develop into an emerging leader in whatever they're responsible for. So we've been doing that for about 15 years. And in fact, IEC National has modeled their emerging leaders program off of what we started here at our local chapter. But we bring those people through. So we don't just stop by you got your license. We're continuing to develop those leaders. And at the national level, the emerging leaders this year created a Minecraft game. So the video game Minecraft. I was literally going
to go here with you at some point. So, I was like, this sounds like Minecraft.
And so that is what they've done is they created a Minecraft module that is all about what it's like to be an electrician. It is super cool. It is super cool. So, but that's what I've been saying all along, because I just want that person that thinks they're going to develop. I want to develop video games. Oh no, we have a job for you right here.
That's innovative. That's good innovative thinking though on the recruiting side.
So, well, and the other things we do beyond getting those people that are already that are young people, we want everybody to know that this is an opportunity. I mean, I have this wonderful example of a gentleman who was 60 years old, laid off from his job installing pneumatic systems in bank drive-thrus. He's like, I got laid off from a job at the age of 60. It's the only job I've ever had. I don't know anything else. He had a buddy who was an electrician that said, look, we're hiring. We need some extra help on this job site. Come be an apprentice. And he's like, I don't know anything about electricity. He's like, all I've ever done is say, this is where I want to plug in the pneumatic system when I'm done installing it, right? This gentleman's name is Jerome. He doesn't mind me using his name because I've told the story before. Jerome entered our program at the age of 60. He went through the 4 years of apprenticeship. He hadn't seen the inside of a classroom since high school. So that was a little bit of a challenge to him, but he connected with younger people who had seen the inside of a classroom, and they developed this intergenerational relationship, working together to get through school. This group would study together. He graduated in June from our program.
This is recent.
Years ago now, but,
okay.
But he did his 4 years. He graduated at our graduation in June of that year. He brought his son and his grandson to graduation. He passed his journey worker license in July. He turned 65 in August and was eligible to then retire. But those last 4 years are what sustained him in a job that, he couldn't have left at the age of 60. He needed health care. He needed a good paying job, which he got through his apprenticeship program. And he graduated, got his license, and retired within this time frame. But he could still work part-time if he wanted to, in a trade he was licensed to do.
That's
so
cool. So I'm seeing
doors are open at any level.
Yeah, I'm seeing two great lanes. I'm seeing this next generation, and then I'm seeing the current generation that actually, since we're on the topic of the AI discussion, I think as people have to look for alternative careers or different careers, this becomes another door that is still open for them to potentially go into if they're interested. And it's a career. It's not it's not just a, let's just make some ends meet here. It's like, no, there's actually a legit long-term investment here that you can be a part of.
And there's work because somebody's building those AI, those AI, the data centers and, the infrastructure that it requires. And Colorado's still a growing state. No matter where you are, the roads and bridges and, and housing, all that's done, by the work of our electricians. The hospitals and healthcare centers. Hospitals are a very interesting thing right now in how they're built. Because one of the other things I've seen change in one of the innovations in the last 10 years has just been in prefabrication. So you go into a hospital ICU and all the walls in the ICU look the same. Those are being prefabbed and brought in. And, it's like Legos, it's plug and play, but it's quality control. So there's consistency in everything that exists rather than each of those walls being individually constructed, as you're going down the aisle of the hospital wing. So that's just an example. So prefab is different. Technology is different. Even from safety, within just a few months of me taking this position 10 years ago, we had a lunch and learn with a telecommunication company that was showing contractors how to set up telecommunication centers off-site, if they're working in a mining out in the minefield, or they're building a data center in the middle of nowhere, right? How do you set up the communication back to your office? And this telecommunication company started talking, and they got out their phone and said, here's how we can set this up. And electrical contractors pushed themselves away from the table and said, wait, we don't allow phones on a job site. We don't even want them to have their phones in the truck. We want them to leave their phones at home. Only 10 years ago. Now, those phones have everything you need to access the code, to access the blueprints on the project.
Yep.
There's
digitization of everything.
There's a camera to be able to communicate. Let me take a photo of this and, tell me how we do this different. We've got a problem solved for. So those devices, and not only are those devices something that's on the job site every day, but safety vests now have a pocket for your phone. They now have a pocket for your iPad, that didn't exist 10 years ago. So the PPE is changing, the technology is changing, the use is changing. All these ways that we've seen it continue to grow, and it's continuing.
Yes, it's exciting. It's great because I feel so much great passion from you, and I know that passion is something that definitely boils down into the entire organization, where everybody gets enthusiastic about the mission of everything that's going on, especially with IEC. Last question I'm going to ask you, because we're going to run out of time, is women in the workforce. IEC, have you guys seen over the last few years a pretty significant uptick in women entering the workforce and doing apprentice programs?
Yes. So if I leave a legacy at all, it's going to be that we have more women and people of color and economically disadvantaged, knowing that this is an opportunity for them, along with everybody. Like, it really is important to me that everybody knows. I'm pretty sure that when I started 10 years ago, we had 2 women.
Really?
In our program.
And that was, how many people did you have when you started again?
Just shy of 1,000.
Okay, so just
shy of 1,000. So
two
I know
women.
we had 2 women. We might have had more, but I know we had 2.
Okay.
That would have been 2015 when I started. We now have 110 women enrolled in our program. Still not nearly enough, but I'm proud of that number. We try to get to know them, because I want to know what brought you to the industry. Because what brought you to the industry, I want to do more of that to get more women engaged. We have women that have come from domestic violence situations. We have women that have come from homelessness. We have women that are on their second career, like we just talked about. For some people, this didn't work out, so what else can I find to do? And yes, we have women that have dads who are owners of companies that maybe even years ago, dad wouldn't have encouraged her to be in the industry. And now he's like, come on, you're taking over the business. We're going to get you there, right? So we run something we called Women Empower. And we give opportunities for our female apprentices and anybody that wants to be part of the conversation, really. It's not just for women, but it really is designed for making sure that we are giving them an opportunity to see other women in the workplace, other women that are in the program with them, because they're across 3 campuses and online and not always in class on the same night. We're 4 nights a week. You do 4 hours of class time 1 night a week over this 4-year period. So we're doing this really to bring women together so that they can exchange and they can tell us what their challenges are. Because if I then can work with an employer to help them empower individuals in the workplace to feel even more connected in the workplace, then that's going to help retain those people that they worked really hard to recruit and bring into the organization. We want all of our companies to be employers of choice. And how do they do that? And then we're also doing a Women Empower series at the national level. Yes, targeted at apprentices, but also targeted for women that are in the industry. And how are we making sure that they're giving opportunities to continue to grow and learn and be supportive? I mean, I talked about my dad earlier. I'm sitting in this chair because my father said, you can do anything you set your mind to.
He made you tinker in the driveway.
He made me tinker in the driveway and let me under the car to get up under the engine, not just in the engine. So I feel really blessed that I had support from the beginning, and I never even questioned that I couldn't do anything that anybody next to me could. And that's not necessarily the way everybody has been raised. And so if we can help people have the confidence that they need in order to, engage in the industry, again, no matter who that is, that's really important. And in fact, I just did this national presentation, our national convention, using the concept of drafting in NASCAR and racing. I did a session called Driving, Ladies and Gentlemen, Start Your Engines, Driving Leadership into the Future. And it was really about how do we be the lead car? How do we help propel and, allow people to line up behind us that are drafting behind us? How do we be mentors so that we're bringing everybody along? And eventually, those people are going to be able to side draft around us, slingshot around us, and lead into the future. And that's really what you mentioned. My team. My team is amazing, and that's really. We could have a whole other hour on culture in the workplace.
Oh, the experience that I have with your team is awesome. I love the roll up the sleeves, can-do attitude that everybody seems to have there. They're open-minded in so many great ways where they're like, that's a good idea. We should run with that. And it's like, you don't always get that same level of intentionality around problem solving. Sometimes it's like, well, this is the way it is. And that's just the end of that conversation. I feel like the team and the culture that you guys have cultivated at IEC Rocky Mountain specifically, that's most of my experience with the organization is just, Paul's fantastic. I love Paul. Brett has been amazing too. Just everybody has just got such great intentions.
Everybody is because, again, we hire for culture. We hire for culture. We hire for around our core values. We lead, we coach, we train around those core values. So, very few people have been running an apprenticeship program on the street when they hire. We hire for skills, but we hire for that ability to serve our members and to respect each other and have integrity and accountability. And we have a lot of fun together. But yeah, it's an amazing team, but even for our contractors, it's about culture. It's about culture in the workplace.
Right.
It's about the safety aspect. This.
Safety is culture.
Safety is the culture. And everybody has responsibility for that safety culture, but everybody has responsible for all the other things that take place and holding each other accountable to go get the work done. So.
Well, that was fantastic. We're out of time. Where can people reach out to you, find more information about IEC Rocky Mountain?
So our website is iecrm.org. We are a .org organization. So iecrm.org is the place to go if you're interested in being an apprentice. If you're interested in being a member or an industry partner, we love that. We do maintain a hire list. So if you're looking for work, you can look on that job board to see what's posted. If you're a contractor looking to hire, we maintain a hire list that this is back to the recruitment that we do, that we can tell you who's looking. Who isn't working in the industry right now but wants to be. So another piece of how we make all this connection. A small contractor doesn't have time to go out and recruit all the time. So we maintain that list for them.
Oh, it's a procured list.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Absolutely. And so many of them have even gone through our pre-apprenticeship program and have OSHA 10 training, CPR training, and some basic knowledge of hand tools and power tools. So lots of opportunity there. But iecrm.org, you can also follow us on LinkedIn. You can follow us on Facebook and reach out to me or the organization that way.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Marilyn. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you.